The biggest risk to your business is not what you think. It's not the market. It's not your competitors. It's something far closer, something within. I'm Ray Dalio, and today I want to talk about the one risk that silently destroys more businesses than anything else. It's not a sudden crash or an unexpected event. It's the failure to see reality as it really is. When leaders stop being truthful with themselves, when they ignore the signals, when they let ego or comfort blind them, failure becomes inevitable. So let's break this down into 5 principles. Point 1. Embrace reality, don't fight it. When I say embrace reality, I don't mean it as a nice motivational line. I mean it as the most fundamental rule of survival in both life and business. Reality is the truth of how things work, whether you like it or not. It doesn't bend itself to your wishes, your plans, or your comfort zone. Reality is like gravity. You can deny it. You can pretend it isn't there, but if you jump off a building, you will still hit the ground. In business, reality shows up as changing market conditions, new competitors, technological shifts, or the evolving needs of customers. When you refuse to see it, when you cling to the old way of doing things just because it feels safe, you set yourself up for collapse. Look at companies like Kodak, who practically invented the digital camera but refused to embrace it because they were too comfortable with film. Or think of Blockbuster, who laughed at the rise of streaming while Netflix quietly adapted to reality. Both of these businesses had the resources, the talent, and the market share to dominate for decades. But they failed for one simple reason. They fought against reality instead of aligning with it. That is the single biggest risk. When leaders start believing their own illusions more than the facts in front of them, it's only a matter of time before reality breaks them. The truth is, embracing reality requires humility. It demands that you put aside your preferences and biases and see the world as it is, not as you wish it to be. Most people don't like to do that because reality often brings pain. It tells you that your favorite strategy is no longer working. It tells you that your product isn't what people want anymore. It tells you that you need to change when you would rather stay comfortable. But pain is a signal, not an enemy. Just as physical pain tells you something is wrong in your body, business pain tells you something is wrong in your strategy. If you listen to it, if you embrace it, you can adapt before it's too late. If you ignore it, you'll only make the fall harder. Embracing reality also means being willing to constantly update your beliefs. What was true yesterday might not be true tomorrow. Markets change, technology evolves, people's expectations shift. If you hold on to yesterday's truths as if they're eternal, you blind yourself. The best businesses are run by people who treat reality like a moving target. They stay flexible, they stay curious, and they stay alert. They don't get stuck defending the past. They keep evolving with the present. So, when I tell you the greatest risk is the failure to embrace reality, I mean it literally. Every collapse I've seen in business has roots in denial. Leaders ignored the signals, dismissed the changes, or believed their own stories more than the facts. Reality always wins, and the sooner you accept that, the stronger and more resilient your business will be. Point 2. Beware of ego and blind spots. If reality is the first enemy, ego is the second, and often the more dangerous one because it hides within you. Ego is the voice that tells you, "I already know," when you don't. It's the whisper that convinces you to protect your pride instead of searching for truth. And it's the force that blinds you to your own weaknesses and blind spots. In my career, I've learned that ego is the silent killer of great businesses. Why? Because when leaders let ego drive their decisions, they stop learning. They become defensive when challenged. They shut down dissenting voices. And instead of adapting to reality, they cling to the illusion that they are always right. I've seen this countless times. A CEO builds a company, enjoys massive success, and then, when the world changes, refuses to change with it. Why? Because ego won't let them admit they don't have the answers anymore. Success can be intoxicating. It convinces you that your past decisions prove you're infallible. But that very success is often what blinds you to the future. The truth is, everyone has blind spots. We all see the world through our own narrow lens, shaped by our experiences, assumptions, and desires. Alone, your perspective is incomplete. That's why it's essential to invite feedback, to listen to people who disagree with you, and to constantly question your own thinking. But ego hates that. Ego wants to protect you from discomfort. It wants to silence criticism. It wants to keep you safe in the illusion that you already have it all figured out. And that's exactly how businesses die. Leaders close their ears, close their minds, and drive straight into failure without even realizing it. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine a founder who built a company through bold, intuitive decisions. In the early years, that confidence worked. But now, the business is larger, the risks are higher, and the complexity is greater. If that founder refuses to adjust, if they keep trusting gut instinct over evidence and feedback, ego will lead them straight into disaster. I've personally felt the sting of ego. Early in my career, I made a bold market call, and I was wrong, dead wrong. Instead of admitting it quickly, my ego kept me holding on, defending my position, believing I couldn't possibly be mistaken. That mistake cost me dearly, but the lesson was priceless. Pain broke through my ego, and I realized something powerful. The ability to say, "I don't know," is far more valuable than pretending you always do. When you let go of ego, you open yourself to truth, and truth is what saves you. So beware of ego. Beware of the blind spots it creates. The most dangerous risk isn't the one you can see, it's the one you refuse to see. Surround yourself with people who challenge you. Create systems that expose your weaknesses instead of hiding them. And most importantly, cultivate the humility to admit when you're wrong. Because in business, arrogance leads to blindness, and blindness leads to failure. Point 3. Learn from pain and mistakes. One of the hardest lessons I've learned in life and business is this: pain is your greatest teacher, if you're willing to listen. Most people run from pain. They treat it as something to avoid, something to numb, something to push away. But the truth is, every mistake, every setback, every painful failure carries within it the seed of growth. The formula I often repeat is simple: pain plus reflection equals progress. Without reflection, pain is just suffering. But with reflection, pain becomes the sharp tool that cuts away your illusions and shows you the truth. I'll give you an example from my own journey. In the early 1980s, I was so certain about an economic downturn that I bet my company on it. And I was wrong. Completely wrong. That mistake nearly destroyed me. I lost money, I lost credibility, and at one point, I had to borrow from my father just to pay my bills. It was one of the most painful experiences of my life. But here's the key. Instead of letting that pain crush me, I let it humble me. I sat with it, I studied it, and I asked, what did I miss? What can I learn? And that reflection reshaped the way I thought forever. I stopped assuming I was right and started building systems to test my ideas against reality. That painful mistake became the foundation for the success that came later. Now think about your own business. When something goes wrong, maybe sales drop, maybe a project fails, maybe a strategy falls apart, your first instinct is usually to blame someone else or to move on quickly so you don't feel the sting. But that reaction robs you of the lesson. Pain is like a signal light on your dashboard. It's flashing saying, something's wrong here. Pay attention. If you ignore it, the problem grows until it becomes catastrophic. But if you face it, if you stop and reflect, you discover the hidden truth. And it's that truth that allows you to grow stronger. Some of the greatest innovations, the strongest companies, and the wisest leaders were forged in the fire of failure. Why? Because they had the courage to reflect instead of hide. Learning from pain also builds resilience. Each time you face hardship, reflect, and adjust, you become tougher, sharper, and more prepared for the future. You stop fearing mistakes because you realize mistakes are not the end. They are stepping stones. They are the tuition you pay for wisdom. I often say, don't worry about looking good, worry about achieving your goals. If you're more focused on protecting your image than learning from pain, you'll keep making the same mistakes. But if you embrace the sting, you'll turn pain into progress. So let me be clear. Mistakes are not your enemy. Denial is. Pain is not your enemy. Avoidance is. If you have the courage to reflect deeply on every failure, you will find the knowledge that keeps you moving forward. And that knowledge, more than anything else, is what separates those who fall from those who rise. Point 4. Build a culture of truth and transparency. If you want your business to survive in the long run, you cannot build it on comfort, silence, or hidden truths. You must build it on radical transparency. What do I mean by that? I mean creating an environment where people can speak openly, where the truth is valued more than protecting egos, and where problems are exposed rather than buried. Most organizations fail, not because they didn't have the resources or talent, but because people were afraid to speak up. They saw the cracks forming, but they stayed silent. They noticed the mistakes, but they didn't want to upset the boss. They had ideas that could have saved millions, but they kept them to themselves. Why? Because the culture punished honesty and rewarded politeness. That is a deadly trap. In my experience, the most successful companies are the ones where truth flows freely, where anyone, regardless of rank, can challenge ideas without fear. At Bridgewater, the company I built, we created a culture where disagreements were not just allowed, but encouraged. It wasn't always comfortable. Sometimes it was messy. Sometimes it was intense. But that openness prevented blind spots from growing into disasters. When people can challenge you, when they can point out flaws in your thinking, you gain a far clearer view of reality. And as I've said before, facing reality is the foundation of survival. But let me be honest with you. Transparency is hard. It goes against human nature. Most people prefer harmony over honesty. They would rather avoid conflict than face uncomfortable truths. Leaders especially struggle because hearing criticism feels like an attack. Yet, the paradox is this: the very discomfort you feel when someone tells you the hard truth is the thing that will save you. Imagine a doctor finding a tumor early and telling you about it. It's uncomfortable. It's painful to hear, but it gives you the chance to treat it before it's too late. That's what transparency does in a business. It catches problems early, when they're still small, instead of letting them grow into something fatal. Building such a culture requires courage and consistency. You have to reward honesty, even when it stings. You have to invite challenges to your own ideas, even when your ego resists. And you have to set the tone at the top. If you, as a leader, shut down feedback or punish dissent, no one else will risk speaking the truth. But if you model openness, if you show that the truth matters more than appearances, others will follow. Over time, this creates a team that trusts each other because they know no one is hiding anything. And trust, built on truth, is the strongest foundation for any organization. So remember this: a culture that hides the truth is fragile because it cannot correct its mistakes. A culture that embraces truth is resilient because it learns, adapts, and grows stronger through every challenge. If you want to protect your business from the biggest risk of all, self-deception, then make transparency your core value. Because without truth, you are flying blind. With truth, you have the vision to navigate any storm. Point 5. Prepare for the worst, expect surprises. The final principle is one that has saved me time and time again. Always prepare for the worst and always expect surprises. In life and in business, the greatest dangers are usually the ones you don't see coming. You can have the best strategy, the best team, and the best product, but if you assume that tomorrow will look just like today, you're setting yourself up for disaster. The truth is, uncertainty is the only certainty. Markets crash, technologies disrupt, competitors emerge, governments change rules, and black swan events come out of nowhere. If you're not prepared, even a single shock can wipe you out. I've lived through many economic crises, each one different, each one unexpected, and each one devastating for those who assumed the good times would last forever. The businesses that survived weren't the ones that predicted the future perfectly. They were the ones that built resilience into their system, the ones that planned for failure before it happened, and the ones that kept enough flexibility to adapt when the world shifted. Think of it like sailing. You don't just prepare for calm seas, you prepare for storms. You don't know exactly when or where the storm will hit, but you know it will come, and you stock your ship with enough supplies, strong sails, and a backup plan so you're not caught off guard. In business, preparing for the worst means stress testing your assumptions. It means asking yourself, what if I'm wrong? What if the market collapses? What if this product fails? What if a competitor outpaces us? And instead of brushing those questions aside, you build safety nets. That might mean diversifying your revenue streams so you're not dependent on one source. It might mean keeping enough liquidity to survive a downturn. It might mean building partnerships so you're not isolated. These buffers don't eliminate risk, but they give you breathing room when surprises hit. Too many leaders build their businesses for perfection. They assume growth will continue, costs will stay low, and everything will go according to plan. But perfection is a fantasy. Resilience is reality. The strongest companies don't bet on things going right. They prepare for when things go wrong. Now, some people push back and say, but if I focus too much on worst-case scenarios, won't that make me pessimistic? No, preparing for the worst is not pessimism. It's realism. It's the same reason we buy insurance. We don't expect our house to burn down, but if it does, we're protected. That protection gives us peace of mind and freedom to operate boldly. In the same way, when you know you've prepared for surprises, you can take risks, innovate, and move forward with confidence. Because you're not betting the farm on everything going perfectly, you're building strength to handle imperfection. So remember this: surprises will come, crises will come. The only question is whether you'll be caught off guard or ready to adapt. Prepare your business like you would prepare a ship for stormy seas, strong, flexible, and equipped with backup plans. If you do that, no single shock will end your business. Instead, you'll not only survive the storms, but emerge stronger because of them. So let me leave you with this. The greatest threat to your business is not outside, it's inside. It's the refusal to see, to listen, to learn, to prepare. Face reality, defeat ego, learn from pain, build truth, and prepare for surprises. Do that, and no risk can end your business. If this gave you something to think about, hit subscribe, and let's keep learning how to thrive in a changing world.